Hello everyone and welcome to Library Works' free live webinar event, COVID and Beyond, the next chapter in patron counting systems for libraries, brought to you by SenSource. My name is Jenny Newman, Vice President of Library Works, and I'll serve as today's moderator. Our webinar will run approximately 1 hour and include a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Please type your questions in the question pane on your control panel at any time during the webinar. In case you have to log off early, rest assured that all attendees will receive a copy of the recording tomorrow. Our presenters today from SenSource are Jessica Lipley, Andy Clutter, and Dan Aloise. Jessica is the marketing coordinator for SenSource and has been with the company for 10 years. She has a vast knowledge of how SenSource products have adapted over time to meet the changing needs of customers and enjoys market research to uncover what's next. Andy is the marketing director for SenSource. He joined the company last year right before their SafeSpace product was created and has been involved with this product since day one. Dan is a general manager for SenSource. As general manager, Dan leads the daily operations, overseeing all departments within the company. Starting with SenSource in 2007, as a member of the sales team, Dan has an in-depth understanding of his customers' needs and ensures those needs are continuously met. So let's get started. It's my great pleasure to introduce the SenSource team of Jessica, Andy, and Dan. Welcome, team.
Hey, Jenny.
Everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be here. And just a quick shout out to Jenny and Sharon and the team at Library Works. They do such a great job of setting everything up and helping us to get our messaging across to you guys. So thank you so much. And I'm sure as all of you know, Library Works hosts the Modern Library Awards every year. And SenSource here, we're excited, we're proud to say that we've been recognized with the Platinum distinction for our people counting products for the last 7 years. So it's a little bit about our partnership with Library Works, a little bit more about SenSource as a company. We are members of the American Library Association as well as the Public Library Association. We alternate years of which trade show we attend there, so you can always catch us at one of those shows. We do serve over 1,200 library customers, and that could be probably about 2,000 or so actual individual library facilities. And those are anywhere from like a single rural library to maybe a very large metropolitan library system. We work with a lot of university libraries as well as some specialty libraries. And on this slide here, you could see a few different customers listed. And I think one thing that maybe sets us apart from our competitors is, we have vast experience working in a lot of different architectural scenarios that libraries have. You guys have a lot of historic buildings and modern architecture with maybe art hanging down or marble walls and ceilings, all sorts of crazy things. So we have experience with cabling and the privacy issues and a lot of those unique problems we have experience overcoming. So I think that's maybe one thing that sets us apart from some other people counting suppliers out there. So in today's webinar, we just wanted to discuss. So over the past year, we've worked with a lot of new libraries that have come to us for new capacity restrictions because of COVID. But from day one, back in 2002 when SenSource started, we've always been a people counting company. So today we just wanted to kind of bridge that gap and tell that story of SenSource and how that single solution, that same sensor is going to help you with getting through the pandemic and beyond, from those capacity restrictions into the future and with just your standard patron counting data. So I'm going to hand it over to Andy here, and he'll tell us what we're going to get into today.
Hi again, everybody. Thanks again for joining our webinar today. Just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to talk about. The first thing we want to discuss is the technology behind our people counting solution. How do we do what we do, and how does it impact your library? So we're going to talk about the sensors, the hardware, and then also the software behind our solution. And then we'll jump right into SafeSpace, which is our COVID solution. It's an automated occupancy monitoring solution. We're going to discuss that and and show you how that system looks and works, and you can solve those problems for you. And then lastly, we'll talk about the data that we are collecting. Data is only as good as making it impactful for you. So you can collect all the data you want, but until you can use it for good, it's really meaningless. So we're going to talk about the data we collect, not only just now for pandemic times, but beyond pandemic, and how it can impact your libraries. And then at the end, we'll answer any questions that you guys may have as we go along the way. So with that being said, I do want to kick it over to Dan. He's going to talk about the technology behind the solution, starting with our sensors.
All right, thanks, Andy. So yeah, just to kind of give a little bit of background as far as the sensor that we use to basically monitor the foot traffic in and out of your library or in and out of spaces within that library, such as like a meeting room or a computer lab. We use, it's our VidX sensor. It's an overhead mounted sensor that it's a stereo video sensor that has 2 video lenses on board the sensor. And the reason why we have those 2 video lenses on that sensor is it's a little bit more than just like a standard camera, like a security camera. It uses those 2 video lenses to kind of build a height map. So the sensor is trained, it's meant for one purpose, and that's to detect people. So it looks for like the height of somebody's head, the decreased height in their shoulders, and it looks for that 3D profile of a person. The sensor is it's power over Ethernet. So it's a very simple setup. We just need the sensor mounted typically on the ceiling about 3 feet, give or take, inside of an entry area or a threshold. And we basically just need a network cable to run from that sensor back to a switch. It's all cloud-based. Our platform's all cloud-based, which we'll get into here later. We guarantee over 97% accuracy with this sensor. That's a high rating, and we guarantee that based on true validation. So how many people actually walked in versus what the sensor counted automatically. The nice thing is with this sensor is you don't have to worry about the sensor or the configuration. Our team has the access to remotely configure the sensor, calibrate it, and also monitor the accuracy ongoing. So yeah, it's a very powerful sensor. The typical use, like I mentioned, is it's threshold counting, so it's directional entry exit. It also has many other uses, such as like monitoring the queue times and how long people are spending in certain areas. But the majority of our library customers are typically using those in and out of certain areas, perimeter doors, entries into interior spaces.
Right, and I just wanted to hit on again, like Dan said, so the sensor is video based, but it is not a security camera. I think a lot of people will get confused. We get a lot of questions about that, especially with all the extensive privacy concerns in this day and age. So there's no live streaming video to a DVR like a security camera has.
So we'll play this little video for you guys just to kind of get a view of what the sensor looks like mounted on an entryway. So it's kind of hard to tell where the sensor is, and that's kind of our goal, is to try to blend this into your ceiling, into your design. But the sensor, as you can see with the live video view, it basically objects each person. It provides a unique basically bubble over that person. And it basically tracks where that person started and where their track is within a certain within the beginning part of the entryway, for example. And it only counts when somebody actually enters. So if somebody kind of does a U-turn, pops their head into an entrance, or if an employee goes out to look out the door or help a patron out, it's not going to count them because they didn't actually leave, for example. So that's a little bit of how the sensor works, and that it also has, you can't really see in this video, but it also can tell the height of people. So we use that for child and adult classification, but still very, very private.
Right, and like Dan mentioned too, those count lines that he had said, so that's something that's actually like virtually drawn on the back end of the sensor that our tech support team is doing when they initially set up your sensor. And so we have, oftentimes with libraries, there may be that atrium, that lobby right when you walk in with maybe like a book drop or something, where they don't want to count people that are just coming in the door, going right to this book drop, before actually entering into the building. So the great thing about us calibrating the sensor is that we can draw those count lines so that it's actually accurately capturing entrances into your building and exits.
Yep.
So that's a little peek behind the scenes on how our sensors work and how the technology does count the people. So keep that in mind as we go forward here, talking about our SafeSpace occupancy monitoring for those capacity restrictions due to COVID. When COVID hit, our traditional people or patron counting business, it slowed down considerably. Obviously, when we count people and then all of a sudden people are told to stay at home, there's not a lot of people to count. But pretty quickly, the need for some type of capacity monitoring solution emerged, and our development team, they're our heroes because they developed SafeSpace in about a month, which is a very quick turnaround. It was in March and April, about a year ago now, I guess it would have been. Yeah. A year ago, they rapidly developed SafeSpace, and the biggest change between our traditional patron counting and SafeSpace are the data pushes. Our traditional counting are like aggregates of data that are pushed to our cloud service, compared to SafeSpace, which is a true real-time counting mechanism. So in the typical patron counting, we're getting the people who are coming in and we're just documenting that, tallying it, and then pushing it to the cloud. While this is counting ins and outs. If somebody comes in, the number goes up. If somebody goes out, the number goes down. It's a simple process in a concept manner, but to do it accurately with an automated sensor solution, that was our value add. That's how SafeSpace came to be. So some important things to remember as we're showing you what SafeSpace looks like is it is automated. It's counted by the same exact VidX sensor that we use for our typical patron counting solutions. It's real time. So when we say real time, if somebody walks in within a second or two, that count is going to be documented and pushed to our cloud. A really nice aspect of SafeSpace is the communication. We want this to not only be a tool for the libraries, but also for your patrons. So when we say you want to communicate your counts, you can use a tablet or a television at the entranceway that shows the current occupancy, and you can show it in the numbers, or we have a percentage view. So you can say we're at 65% capacity right now. And additionally, you can also communicate this through websites or social media. And Dan will talk about that in a little bit, but just envision a scenario where a mom wants to take her children to the library, but she doesn't want to go when it's crowded. So she can hop on the website, see that capacity is really low right now, and now is a good time to go. So it's a good way to communicate what's going on inside the library with the patrons. And then lastly is the reporting. The reporting that SafeSpace tabulates in our VEA Cloud reporting platform is really invaluable information for libraries themselves, but also for compliance. There's a lot of areas in the country right now where in order to stay open, you need to prove you're staying open safely. So compliance reports with capacity regulations and occupancy, fill levels, those types of things can all be driven out of our reporting platform. So it gives you a real good sense of what SafeSpace is like, and Dan's actually going to show you right now.
Yeah, so as Andy mentioned, we did pivot a little bit. We enhanced our platform slightly with the main benefit of real-time viewing of occupancy. Some of those other features that we put in here are we do have a mobile app available on iOS for iOS devices and Android devices, which really helped our customers, our library customers, and other markets just keep a good eye on what levels there are. So our system, basically what we did is we kind of created a traffic control system. So we have a display that a smart TV, tablet, like Andy mentioned, that would turn red when max capacity is reached. It says "Do not enter." But just like sometimes just patrons or just people coming in they might not notice that, or they might not really care. So we basically have that app so that you, the employee, could get notification of that to maybe enforce, hey, just wait until this display drops below and allows you to enter. And we also basically stood up these endpoint URLs so that you can display that easily. And we basically just kind of thought of different ways that customers could display this without buying some proprietary, unique solution. So we also did, part of that is in the app, you can actually adjust those counts as well. So that was a new thing. We had all of this available through our traditional reporting platform, but now it's much more mobile and kind of, app friendly, things like that.
Right. Yeah, because you have your library director, and especially like in a small, I know like I live in a small community, and I know my library director wears lots of hats. She is in and out and everywhere throughout the library. You're not always chained to your desk, and this is information that you would want to see right wherever you may be. Yep. So you can have your app on your phone and still keep tabs on, how full the library is, and if you maybe need to dispatch someone to the entrance to, stop traffic from coming in.
Yeah. One thing too is we basically put in what we call alarms, and they don't have to have the app. We can just send a text message or email alert when occupancy gets to a certain level, certain percentage. So that's a nice feature within SafeSpace. And then we also, even though the sensors are high accuracy sensors, even if we miss one or two people on a day, we're 99% accurate, we wanted to make sure that maybe those couple people they don't carry over, the count doesn't carry over into the next day. So we put in a daily reset as long as you're not 24/7. It just helps make sure that we don't have any drift in that occupancy data. And so just some of those example features for SafeSpace there. We can talk about some of the display views. Yeah, I think we already kind of talked about this, but right now we have 4 different display views that customers can choose what they want to display if they use our SafeSpace kind of canned display views. However, we do have a REST API that allows customers to pull that occupancy count or that fill level percentage and place that within their website, for example. This is just one example of a university that's done this to show, a few buildings before students walk across campus, maybe the dining services or the library or student union or fitness center. They can just quickly check this. And it's a very simple process for us to help you out with that. We can share HTML code and help you out with that. But we did, as unfortunate as the situation is with COVID, it was really cool to see customers really adopt this and use our data, not just to improve business operations, but for safety mainly, and also kind of customer experience, if you will, so that people are getting frustrated, even though it's kind of outside of people's control.
Yeah, and like we said, so like a year ago was when we did our last Library Works webinar, and some of you may have been on that as well. When we first came out with SafeSpace, and as Andy had said, our software developers, they just busted their butts to get this thing out. And over those few months, it was I was really proud of our team for the way that they were so open in communicating with our customers to see how can we make this better. And so a lot of these features that came about throughout the few months there at the beginning of COVID were really just us hearing what the customers needed. So we spun up the SafeSpace and got the bones of it ready for the real-time occupancy, and then they were like, hey, we need to see this on the go. Okay, so we got the mobile app going. Yeah. Okay, there's this other aspect that we haven't had to do before where it's customer facing. Your patrons are interested in this information as well. So we need to source TVs and tablets and get apps and URLs set so it's easy for the libraries to display that information. Okay, take it one step further. We want to post it on our social media and on our website. So, not only are the people who are standing in front of our library have this information, people who are at home have this information. And then again, with the alerts, that was another great feature. So if you aren't at your desk or whatever, you can still get a text message alert to let you know that you're near capacity. So, just really proud of our team for listening and adapting our solution to fit those needs.
One thing just real quick to add is, I forgot to mention it, but it's probably obvious, but you can have as many doorways make up one occupancy space. We do get that question a lot. So where mean, this has much value because you don't need to have labor to hand click when people are entering, for example. But also, even if you did hand click, if you have multiple doorways for fire code or whatever reason, you just have a lot of doors, we have customers with 20, 50, up to 50 doors for example, some museums that they want to track occupancy for the building, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, especially university libraries. You know, we've got a lot of campuses with a lot of entrances.
Yeah. And like Jess was mentioning, we continue to evolve the solution, and another one of those evolutions came when customers started asking for some type of reporting. So what does the data look like that we're capturing, not just with our traditional patron counting, but also with SafeSpace? So many libraries have come to us just for the SafeSpace solution, but even when those restrictions are gone, those customers will have a reliable, extremely accurate people counting system in place to collect that foot traffic data. Because once the sensors are installed, and Dan will talk about this in a little bit, it's a very low cost solution on a monthly basis, ongoing for the data collection and reporting. So it's not that you're making this investment for a hopefully temporary pandemic related solution. Like, yes, you can make that investment for the pandemic, but you have ongoing benefits for many, many years down the road. So what does that data look like, and how can you use it once COVID has passed? You know, fingers crossed here in the near future, you can still rely on that foot traffic that's being collected to do things like report for government funding and grants, which is the number one reason libraries come to us, is they want to collect their foot traffic data because they need to report for funding. And what goes right along with that is this foot traffic data can help justify your facility expansions or remodels or repurposing. We see that a lot. Libraries want to add on, or they want to change one wing to a different type of wing, but they don't. It's just a gut feel, or it's just an idea. Mm-hmm. But the foot traffic data showing the usage can actually provide the justification to make those decisions. And then thirdly, just analyzing the usage, like I just mentioned, you can do things like total traffic, meaning how many people are visiting the building. Predictive traffic, we do have some predictive metrics within VEA, our reporting platform, that can help you with staffing purposes. It can help you make decisions based on hours of operation. You can also identify traffic patterns. If you see visitors going to one particular department and not visiting another, or the only time a visitor visits this one department is after they visit a different department. So you can start to pick up on those patterns and trends, which can help you serve your patrons better. Like the business hour assessment we hit on, occupancy we hit on, and then conference room and auditorium usage. The days of people visiting libraries to check out books and go home and read them, while that's still a huge component of libraries, that's far from the only opportunity and option that library patrons get to take advantage of. There's so much more going on in libraries these days that we kind of say that libraries can't just rely on circulation stats anymore to be your only data point. You need to know how many people are coming in and out, what people are doing when they're in the library, and you can't just count on circulation stats for that anymore. So there's a lot that can be learned from this foot traffic data, and there's a lot that you can get out of it when you're talking about reporting and those types of things. Mm-hmm. So all that being said, what does our reporting platform look like? This is like I mentioned, it's called VEA, VEA, and this is what the interface will look like when you hop in to look at your foot traffic data.
Yeah, so just wanted to give just a quick tour through the VEA platform, just to kind of give you just to let you know what features are in our product here. This is, as we mentioned, SafeSpace. SafeSpace wasn't built as a separate software package. It's built as an enhancement to our platform. So just real quick, on the left-hand side of my screen, you'll see basically the some SafeSpace features there. But as far as the historical reporting goes, we have basically dashboards, and dashboards are fully configurable areas of the product where you can go into the widget library, add different KPIs to that dashboard, such as like trend comparisons, what was the traffic or what was the occupancy last week versus this, the same week for the previous year, or what's this traffic compared to the averages of the other branches. So you can easily just click on a widget, drag and drop and configure out the entrance traffic, exit traffic, or occupancy, and plot that, and you can move things around and design it. The nice thing is once that dashboard is created, you can then share that dashboard out to other users, so they don't have to kind of create a dashboard from scratch. You can also publish a dashboard, which basically it doesn't publish it outside of your organization, but it publishes it to any user that logs in. So when a new user logs in, that dashboard will be sitting right on the left-hand side for them to use. And that's like with that lock sign next to that lower ABB dashboard. Some other features that I really like, and this kind of goes towards the more of a compliance report. I'll show you later on how to just run a standard like occupancy compliance report, but just kind of going through these features here. Basically, we have what we call a day-hour heat map, and what this is it's a nice visual tool to look at each hour of the week. There's a couple use cases for this, more than a couple probably, but one is to look at an average over a time period. So let's just think of like a rolling average for the previous 4 weeks. What's our peak times for the last 4 weeks? Or we can just look at this as a static 1 week snapshot. So I know it might be a little bit hard to see on the screen, but basically the darker the color of the block, the busier that time was. And again, we can look at this as a traffic scenario or occupancy. So when I say traffic, that means how many people walked in or out of the library. Occupancy is going to be that variance, say how many people were actually inside that library at one time. But there's multiple views of this. We do have customers that we have an option for what we call a cloud link. What that means is you can embed this image on your website, and in our system, it basically references to our system to refresh that data just so it doesn't get stale. Especially, we're seeing a lot of different visit patterns, whereas before COVID, maybe it was a little bit more traditional. But with like the working from home or remote learning, things like that, obviously kind of changed up some of the traffic patterns there. And like any report they can see in our platform, you can always schedule to be emailed out on a scheduled basis to yourself as a user. You can even email that to just email addresses. They don't have to be users within the platform.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on too, we actually have a university library customer that referenced this day-hour heat map to propose changing the operating hours for the library. So he was looking at this, he tracked the data over an entire semester and looked at the information. The library was open until midnight. We realized from 10 p.m. till midnight, there were hardly any people coming in to use the library. And so he proposed to close the library at 10 p.m. And that obviously got approved, and that's going to save that library thousands of dollars over the course of a year, just on staffing and operational costs by being closed those 2 hours at the end of the day.
That's good. Yeah. Just another tool, we have a data map. So if you have multiple locations, it's really handy to be able to configure this map view. And our system allows you to quickly see which libraries, again, it's configurable. So if you want to use this for more of a real-time occupancy, so we could have this so that the larger that bubble that's driven off of what the actual current occupancy is, or maybe for more of a historical perspective, you could say, let's look at last month's traffic, and we can just easily see which library is the busiest. So you can just click on the actual dot. It's interactive, and you can actually see that data on a screen here. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting too. I don't think we actually called that out, but if you have a large library system, 20, 50, 100 libraries in your library system, you could all be under one instance of VEA.
Yeah.
So you can have, it's unlimited users. We don't charge per user. It's unlimited users, and there's actually a hierarchy built in there. So if you have your, your library board for the entire system, they can have access to view the data for all of the libraries and run reports over, like Dan's showing you here, of all the libraries in that library system. But you can also assign roles for each individual library so that they can see just their library's data. Mm-hmm. So it's, kind of encompasses the whole gamut.
Yeah, and on top of that, like Dan mentioned about the email reports, it's a real nice feature of VEA, because while VEA is very intuitive and easy to use, you can set up the reports that each individual library or the entire hierarchy wants to see, and then just schedule them, and then those are automatically emailed at the periodicity that you chose. So if you want it weekly or monthly, you can schedule that, and then those reports are automatically sent out to who you want them sent to. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, you could have a library system of 15 libraries with 100 staff members, and only one person has to go into VEA to set up those reports, and then for the rest of the time, those reports are just emailed out to the critical personnel. I'm not encouraging that, because I think going into VEA is very valuable, but it is nice for if you have some lower level employees that you might not necessarily want in there, or for whatever reason.
We know your time is valuable.
Yeah, right. You don't want to necessarily have your staff digging through writing reports when those reports are already written. You can just have them emailed. So it is real nice to have those to be able to be scheduled and automatically sent.
Yeah, exactly. And then another feature basically that's not as visual appealing as the dashboards or heat maps. We call it's our data grid. It's basically a way, because a lot of times we have customers say, okay, we like the dashboards for trend comparison. We can see visualizations on a map for usage, but sometimes at the end of the day, you still need to fill out an annual report that says how many visitors did you get this year or this quarter or this month, or what. Then the flip side of that is the occupancy reports. Like if we want to say, okay, we have a max capacity of 50 people in the building. Let's run a report to see how do we do last month to see how well we complied to that 50 person max. So, and you can do all of that through the previous report methods, but this is just a way to basically get it into an Excel format. So you can just simply choose, I'm going to look at traffic or occupancy. If I choose occupancy, let's just say, let's just go yesterday. Let's go last week by day. And if I just hit refresh here, it comes back with that report, and I can save this report. And basically what this is showing is each location, it shows that obviously the time, the max occupancy for that time period, the average occupancy, and the number of ins and outs. We can also add columns like the max percent capacity. So this is where I'm talking about, instead of saying, okay, we had, 3 people in the library or 50 people in the library, what's that reference point for the percentage fill level? It's a nice tool that you can just hit save, and then you can download into Excel, basically to do your own thing with it, or you can set this up to email you out a report in Excel. So it opens up nicely, it formats it nicely in Excel, and very easy to use. So a couple other things as far as the platform goes. Again, we're not going to get too far into the weeds on the platform. We're happy to set up another meeting with anyone that's interested to kind of dig in a little bit deeper into this. But we support hours of operation. So if you want to exclude getting counts from midnight to 7 in the morning, it's a helpful tool there. We have notification emails. If there is any issue with a sensor, you can get notified that for maintenance and things like that. But here you'll see this is where basically we have the SafeSpace features, where now this gets all into that real time or the app driven stuff. So it's very simple to use. You can have, again, multiple locations all within the platform. You have your display URLs right here, and as soon as I click on a display URL, it'll actually show what the current occupancy is. So just to kind of, I know not to beat a dead horse, but basically the URL endpoints are simply that. There's some products out there that, like for example, we could always run occupancy within our VEA platform pre-COVID, but what this is happening is as soon as somebody crosses an entry line, this is going to update. And we made this website so that it doesn't time out. It's meant for a 24/7 uptime. It can be on a smart TV with a web browser. We have a media hub that comes preloaded with our SafeSpace app. If you get that, connect it to Wi-Fi or a LAN connection, all it asks is for your space code, which is a unique string of characters that we provide you, and that's all the input that you need, and then you can pick which display you want to see.
Right. We tried to make it as easy as we could for you guys.
Yep. Yeah, so our pricing model, it's pretty basic, just because there's really not a ton of components to it. We have the sensors, which our model is you do purchase those sensors up front, and those go for $845. We do have a few variations of sensors that are more of a wide angle lens, or this sensor, for example, can be mounted on a 7.5 foot ceiling up to 20 feet. But let's just say you had a vaulted ceiling up to 30 feet. We have a sensor that can accommodate up to 65 feet, but the pricing would not apply for those kind of sensors. If you have PoE switches, again, this is a PoE device, so we don't need anything, any other piece of hardware other than maybe some brackets, or we have recess mounts, extension arm mounts, just in case you don't have a great location to mount that onto the ceiling. So yeah, $845 for the sensor. And then our platform for kind of what we were, basically everything that we showed, the SafeSpace, the VEA reporting, the apps, unlimited users, remote tech support, that goes for $40 a month. It's all within that umbrella for that fee there, and that's per location. So $40 per library location per month. There's a little caveat there of that includes up to 3 sensors. So if you have 3 unique entrances, for example, you'd be looking at $845 per entry area, and then one fee of $40 per month for that SafeSpace plan there. If you have more locations than that, it's going to be an additional $10 per sensor that you need. So that's the price there. The only other cost would be the physical installation. So we have a support team where we can send out a technician to run the cable, mount the sensor, and it's a very good. It's a very good part of our company. We can install a lot of sensors in a day. Our kind of our max when we're going through some larger rollouts is we can accommodate over 50 locations installed in one day. So sometimes it's a big benefit for customers to say, hey, you just kind of run with that. We do allow for customers, if you have a networking team, IT team, a low voltage vendor that you prefer, we're happy to work with them as well. The nice thing is that the field technician or whoever's installing this device, they don't have to be experts at the sensor. They have to be good at running cable and in following up some simple instructions. The nice thing is once it's online, our support team will remotely configure that. We'll actually ask the person to step underneath the sensor and verify their height, and we work very closely during that installation process. But as far as cost, that's about it.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all we had. Do you have anything else to add, Jess, before we get to the questions?
No, let's do some Q&A.
All right.
Jenny, are there questions?
Well, there are a lot of questions, yes.
Oh, great.
We'll start. Does it actually, referring to the video, does the video actually show the people, or like you showed, or is it just bubbles representing people?
Yeah, so there's an option there. The sensor has a different privacy levels that can be set on the sensor. Once they are set, you can make them more private, but you can't undo that privacy setting. So what I mean by that is the sensor, it doesn't automatically store images or video on the sensor to operate. It does all of that processing on board the sensor. It says, okay, this person entered, let's just send that data packet. Doesn't give any personal identifiable information that, who that person was. Sends that entry or exit count over the wire. But that being said, for us to configure the sensor, we put a hard password on that sensor. And if for example, if your network admin wants to have that password because it's going to be on your network, we would allow that password as well. So somebody that has the access to that would still have the ability to log into the sensor. It's a fairly low res grayscale image from the top down. It's very hard to figure out who that person is. So it doesn't work well as a security camera at all. And it doesn't have the ability to record. The only time that it can be recorded is for accuracy validation. So our support team prefers, if allowed, to schedule a 1-hour validation soon after the installation happens. We have a validation software package that we hand hand hit on the keyboard, entries and exits. And that spits out at the end of that the accuracy report. So that's what when we say we're 97% or greater, that's how we prove that. But if a customer has privacy concerns, that just the ability to have any way to see video, but there's a privacy level 1 filter that omits the live view. It just has just the bubbles of people walking in and out. We could still validate off of that. The only thing that you lose is if 4 people walked in and we see 3 bubbles, if that privacy filter is enabled, we can't prove that there was 4 people there.
But I actually just wrote a blog article about this question. So if you wanted to see the just go over to SenSourceLink.com and find our blog, and I think it's the most recent post on there. You can see what the different privacy filter images look like.
Okay, great, thank you. Do you have sensors without cables?
We do not. It's on our roadmap for by end of this year to have a sensor that would connect using Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. You would still have to power the sensor. But today, right now, the only option is to run a network cable to that sensor.
With that being said, Jess mentioned this earlier, given all of our experience with libraries and universities, we are experts at installing with tricky ceilings, different materials, older architecture. We do have tons of experience running the cables, given situations like that. So we try not to let that be a deal breaker. If that's a concern for a library, it's not as scary as it seems. That's right. Yeah,
okay.
We've pretty much seen and done it all.
All right. What is the maximum height of the ceiling above the door, or can it be monitored in other places other than the straight overhead?
Yeah, so the answer to the second part of that question first, we do want an aerial perspective, so a top-down view. The sensor can support a slight tilt to that. So let's just say you had a really high ceiling, and maybe for cabling purposes, it just helped to get that maybe on a bulkhead at 1 foot away from the door or 6 inches away from that door. We have a little pivot mount to kind of tilt that away. But the first part of the question, so our standard sensor can go up to just under 20 foot. It's 19 foot 9 inches. If you have a higher ceiling than that, there's 2 options. We have an extension pull bracket that can be mounted off of the header of the doorway. So it kind of sticks out 10 inches from that wall. Sensor points straight down. The cabling runs right through that pull bracket, so you don't see a cable hanging out there. Or we have a sensor that can accommodate up to 65 feet. It still maintain the same accuracy. Some people say, well, if it's mounted at 50 feet, there's no way it's going to be as accurate as mounted on an 8-foot ceiling. But it is with the optical zoom of the lenses.
Okay, great. Where does notification to staff go? Must you have a smartphone?
No, the notification to the staff is just a simple text message, SMS. So I'm pretty sure any phone.
We could also do email alerts as well.
Email alerts as well.
You don't have to go to a phone if you do an email.
Yep.
Okay, great. If you have a wider door where 2 people could walk in side by side, will it still count the 2 people? And second part, can you? Okay. And can you set the time for it to reset so there isn't carryover the next day?
Yes and yes. Yeah. Okay. So yep, but yes to both of those.
Okay. And someone asked, what if your library is 24/7?
So then we would not recommend doing a daily reset there. What we would ask is, the sensor, it's very accurate. It probably won't drift much, but just to give us kind of a peace of mind, if it's a 24/7 facility that you anticipate people being in there, let's just say 2 in the morning, that a daily reset to 0 you're kind of afraid of, there's 2 things we can do. We can just not do that, and we have the ability to do what we call a hand-keyed reset. Doesn't have to happen at that time. So let's just say it's 24/7, and you ask maybe a security guard or somebody on the in the building to just do a hand count. They don't need to do anything. That you just say, the exact time. So it's 2 a.m. and there were 7 people in here, and they just give that to someone that has access to the platform. The next day or the next week, that person can go back in and schedule that reset to 7 people. Another thing that we can do is if you do a daily reset and set it to 0, the one thing that you don't risk is the system can't go negative. So if there's 10 people in the library when we reset at midnight, for example, when those 10 people exit, it's not going to drop down negative. It's not like you have to work your way back out of there. So that's the only thing you risk, but it's a good question.
I actually didn't know that there were any libraries that were open 24 hours.
Yeah.
But we work with a lot of casinos, so we do get this question
Yep.
about the 24 hours operating and resets. And then just to reiterate there, we do work with casinos and amusement parks in very high traffic areas, and these are the same sensors that we use. So they are the algorithms that are built into them can distinguish people if they're walking side by side in a group of 50 people coming to your library at the same time, all jumbled up, it's going to count each person and the direction that they're going.
Wow. Okay. Can I print out yearly, monthly, weekly, and daily reports for total number of visitors?
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Excellent.
the easiest way is kind of to go to that data grid. You have the option just to go traffic, and then you have last year to date, X number of relative terms there, and say the granularity that you want to see that data in: minute, hour, day, week. That kind of thing.
Okay. Can you tell how long a person is in the building?
We soon we will be able to do that. I would say within the next 1 or 2 months. It's an algorithm that we're working on to give average visit duration. But right now, just to be transparent, right now today we don't have visit duration. We have time that people have spent in that location, like how often was this location occupied. So let's just say you have a maker space in your library, and you just want to say, how much time is that occupied? Being that obviously the library itself, that would be a worthless report because your hours of operation, there's always going to be somebody in there. This is just saying, out of a given day, how many people used it and what was the percent of that time of hours of operation. But as far as average visit duration, we don't have that, but we are working on that right now.
Okay. Can you have sensors that count total entrance into the building and other sensors that count traffic within the building, such as an entrance on a different floor?
Yes. Yep. So we classify the sensors as either a perimeter sensor, meaning typically exterior doors, and then we have interior sensors that are basically interior spaces. Basically what we had to make sure that doesn't happen is if you go to run a report for last week or year to date, we want to make sure that when you go to run that report and you select your certain library location, we want to make sure that we're only providing the perimeter traffic for that report. But with the interior, you can then get like draw rate, how many people from the, that entered the building, how many people actually went into this interior space. So yeah, the system is able to do that. Also, just to kind of go one step further, is you can use one sensor to basically be a threshold in and out of 2 different occupancy zones. So if you had a second floor, for example, with an elevator and staircase, you can use one sensor at the bottom or top of that, and we could say once they get off of the staircase or out of the elevator, let's decrement them or take them out of the occupancy from the first floor and put them into the second floor. So.
Okay. Someone asked, do you accept purchase orders?
Yes, we do. We accept purchase orders, typically net 30. Libraries are a great customer of ours, not saying anything bad about other markets, but libraries are great customers.
Go ahead and send your PO.
Yeah, well, we won't turn it away.
Today,
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Give me the email address.
Yep. And we do take credit card as well. In all seriousness.
We'll take cash. We'll take whatever.
Okay, what is the maximum width that an entry point can be covered by one sensor?
Maximum would be 23 foot wide.
It's a big door.
Now
Okay.
that depending on the ceiling height. So once we get to if we get up to 12, 13 foot, anywhere from 13 to 20 feet, you'll get about a 23 foot wide coverage area. Now, if you're under that 13 feet, let's just say I don't have my calculator on me right now, the coverage calculator. But for example, at a 10 foot ceiling, you're looking at probably it's going to be able to cover about 13 foot wide. So if you have 2 double doors and it makes up like 12 foot from right door jamb to the left door jamb, we could use one sensor. If the entrance area is wider than one sensor can cover, we do have the ability we have a wide angle lens that can cover a little bit more, or we can stitch multiple sensors together. We can stitch up to 9 sensors together. So if you did have a very open space, that wouldn't be a problem where we virtually stitch so there's one long count line.
Okay. Can you remove staff traffic from the data?
Yeah, we can. Real quick, on the real-time occupancy, the SafeSpace, we cannot because we're working on the event stream, this live data push. So we're counting each body that walks in or out of a doorway. But for the historical reporting, like Patron, counts for last month, we have a name tag that has a unique code on it that the sensor identifies when that's worn. It does double as a name tag, so you can print out a label and slide that into the back of this magnetic name tag, and that will exclude or basically classify that count as a staff member.
Okay. What was the installation cost? A couple people have asked for your team to install.
Oh, it really depends on the job, but just to kind of throw out some standard pricing. We're looking at about $400 per sensor to do a cable run and mount a sensor. That's just kind of the average, I would say. Basically, if it's a complex cable run, or if it's a plaster ceiling, or we need to get a scissor lift in there, that price could go up. But I'd say you're probably looking about $400 in the $400 range to run that cable, mount the sensor, and work with our support team to commission that.
Okay.
If installation costs are kind of prohibitive, we have done kind of hybrid scenarios too with libraries where you'll have your team maybe run the cable and then or we'll run the cable. I don't know. Usually they'll run the cable and
kind of leave a service loop, and then we send a technician out there to terminate and mount.
Okay. Yeah, that was another question. Can we install the sensors ourselves?
Yeah, you definitely can.
Yeah, you could do a full install yourself as well. We actually have a lot of tools for our tech support team, so that we try to make that as easy as possible, step-by-step guides and videos to show you how to install that. And then the last step of that process is to actually call into our tech support team to finish that calibration process and to ensure accuracy, because they can see the view of from the sensor to make sure that it's installed in the proper place.
Yep, and there's some pre-work that we do just to kind of identify where we recommend mounting that. So we have a site survey app they can download, and it asks you to go around, snap pictures, and make a couple measurements, and then we can mark those up and say, if you're going to self-install this is where the sensor needs to go. It's not an exact science. Usually it's not. We're not talking like a matter of it has to be a certain amount of inches away. Usually we're saying it's you have a foot play, but just get it around this area.
Okay. Do you provide? Go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I was just going to go to the next question. Do you provide training on running the reporting platform, and what happens when the devices are non-responsive?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. So we provide training for every new client that signs up with us. We're always here too to answer any questions. We have a nice ticketing platform if there's any questions, and then we can spin up an actual screen share if we want. But for new users, we provide we can provide up to 2 training sessions. Excuse me. First, we like to kind of meet with the admin of the system, kind of like the owner of the system, and then the second's more of all right, let's bring more of the users, the branch managers, for example, to give them that. We also do have video tutorials and guides there.
And what's nice about that is all of our support and customer service team members are right here in our office here in Youngstown, Ohio. So it's employees that are fully integrated into the system on a daily basis, and they're dedicated to just that, supporting our customers.
Yeah, we don't outsource our support,
any of that, and it's just nice that we're all under one roof, so we all have a really good sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
And as for if the sensor goes offline question, I don't know why we didn't actually hit on this earlier. We do proactive maintenance as part of our support package for you as a customer. So we are, how do we say that? We're monitoring the health of your sensors. So we're usually alerted before you may have even noticed that your sensor is offline. And our tech support will try to get that up behind the scenes if they can, or contact you to get that.
The platform actually, it also does set, there's an option if you have any users, IT distribution group email, for example, if you want, you can get notifications of an offline sensor. And it's very fast, but we use that same mechanism for our support team. You can do the same. We have customers that say, I want to know when something's down. Oftentimes, if a sensor does go down, typically it's a known network outage. The sensors are very, very reliable. But yeah.
And if it does go down, it stores the counts, right?
Yep. Yeah, it stores accounts. It can store accounts for months worth of data before once there's a network connection that's reestablished, it'll backfill into the.
So even if your sensor goes down because of the network, we'll still have those counts.
Yeah, as long as we have power.
Okay. Powered, yep.
Yeah. How does the sensor count kids in strollers? And what about babies in chest and backpacks? Will they count that too?
Today it does not. If a child is in a stroller being pushed in, it's the way that the sensor is training and looking for people. It's looking for people walking, or if someone's in a wheelchair, for example. Basically, what it's looking for is that head and shoulder pattern, and kind of it's been trained to look at kind of people walking, or at least them moving in. So if a baby's reclined in a stroller and a sun, the sun canopy's over, we're not going to count that. What we are working on, not to keep saying this is going to be on the roadmap, but is a stroller count. So you can look at your reports for last month, adult and child walking in, as well as stroller entry and exit traffic, which is huge for our library customers, and it's huge for a lot of our amusement parks that get a ton of stroller traffic. You still kind of risk the fact of the child sleeping in the stroller gets pushed in, but then if they can walk, they walk out. Those kind of situations, but I think you'd rather get that count than not. So,
but today we do have the adult and child count separate, which is based on a height filter.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have a recommended number of sensors to gather data for a building, or do you strategically place those based on the data you want to gather?
Yeah, that's strategically placed where we want to gather. So if you're just looking for occupancy of one building, we just want to make sure we're monitoring every ingress and egress door. If it's an emergency exit that rarely gets used, like only in emergencies, most likely you don't need to cover that door. But yeah, it all depends on what you're looking for. If you're saying, hey, we want to know where patrons are going within the library, then we're going to have to look at those interior spaces, the children's wing, the adult area, the maker space, computer lab, and we'll want to make partitions or thresholds to make sure we're monitoring those. So it's all basically, it's a custom depending on your floor plan and layout.
Right, but most every feature we discussed today would be the scenario where you just need pretty much one sensor at each entrance. It's probably a good way to think of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do the sensors work in open wide spaces to track how many people are on each floor, including the stacks?
Yeah, I mean they can. Like I'm working with the library right now where they have a great hall that they have events out there. We can cover that space and say, instead of a threshold count, you'd call that a zone monitoring or dwell monitoring. We can say how many people are in this space and how long did they stay in there. But yeah, those are what we do for open spaces. The other option is to make a perimeter of that open space. So I'm working with another library right now where they don't have a clear division of their adult and teen area to their children's area. It's basically bookshelves that create that separation. It's not a doorway. So in bookshelves, you can allow a lot of different areas where you can enter. So what we're doing is we're stitching 6 sensors together and drawing one count line as a threshold to say when they go into this area, they're going into the proper department.
Okay. Was all the reporting based on relative time, or can I set a custom date range?
Yeah, you can set a custom date range. Basically, the relative terms are nice because you can then set up a reoccurring email that says every day run this yesterday by hour report. But yeah, the short answer is yes. You can click custom and you pick a date range.
Okay. How much do the staff name tags cost?
The staff name tags, they cost, let's see here. I want to say $20 each.
Okay.
Around there. They have a magnetic back to them, so you can reuse them, not poke holes into shirts, and you can just keep those kind of in a staff area so they don't, employees don't take them home.
And they can also print their own, correct?
You can't, yeah. So there's nothing proprietary about, like, there's no technology that is coming out of those name tags. It's not Wi-Fi, it's not Bluetooth, it's just the image. So we have customers that we send them the template, and they can. I wouldn't recommend just like, paper,
Right.
but more like a card stock, and you can print that and attach it to them. And then at that point, the cost, goes down significantly.
Like a large barcode kind of
Yeah.
look.
Okay.
There is an additional license for the sensor to utilize the staff exclusion, and that's $125 one-time fee. So that would be bought typically with the sensor, or you can add that later on.
Later on, okay. How does the system handle someone that comes in the main doors but then leaves through a staff entrance without a sensor?
Yeah, so if we're not detecting it, we're going to miss that. If the sensor's not detecting that exit, so the occupancy is going to get screwed up that way to a degree. Hopefully, it's not a lot of that traffic, but the only way to do it is for us to know about it. Obviously, the reset would handle that on a daily basis, but we have some people that chose to not put a sensor over a seldom used door. So if that person remembers and they're an employee that has the app, for example, they can fire up the SenSource app. When they actually leave, they could hit the decrement button to say, "Take me out." I left it.
We've actually had customers, they mount like a small, inexpensive tablet by the staff door. So the public entrances are monitored, but the staff doors are not. So they have this tablet running by the staff door. So when they come in, they hit the up, and when they leave, they hit the down to keep their capacity numbers accurate.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Save a little money. Still
Yeah.
not covered.
Yeah. Can this be run in-house instead of on the cloud?
No, we don't have an on-premise solution. It's just only cloud-based.
Okay, great. Are the interior sensors exactly the same hardware as the perimeter sensors, and is the cost the same at $845?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Same sensor.
Okay, I've had a lot of people asking if the recording is going to be available. Yes. So tomorrow I'll be sending everybody a copy of this recording so that you can share it with your IT or director, whoever you'd like. Okay, we have an entrance at corner intersection with two sets of double doors on each side at a 90-degree angle. Would that be 4 sensors? One over each double door unit?
No, it depends on, in that corner, how far apart are they?
Mm-hmm.
We oftentimes will use one sensor and draw a line, basically to make a triangle.
Right.
There. So basically, if they come in either one of those entrances, we basically create a threshold joining the two 90-degree walls, if that makes sense. So the two things we want to look at are basically the ceiling height and basically the dimensions of those doors where they sit to the corner.
Yeah, like Dan said earlier too, basically the higher you could get that sensor mounted, the larger your coverage area will be. So for that scenario, you would hope to have a pretty tall ceiling inside the entrances there.
Yeah, if not, then we'd probably need one sensor per double door.
And we understand the price sensitivity. So when we look at scenarios like that, we explore every option before we say, "Oh, you need more sensors."
Good.
If there's a way to pull it off with one sensor, we'll do everything we can to make that happen.
Excellent.
Yeah, sometimes we can look further than the exterior door and say, "Hey, there's a security gate by the circulation desk," and that'll answer the question of the foot traffic, threshold.
Okay, great. Can capacity counts be modified for each sensor, such as an overall count for the main entrance and then separate count for classrooms or study rooms within the main space?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's handy. All right, we have an older style SenSource unit. Does the older wiring work with the new sensor, or will we need to upgrade the wiring?
I would say 90% chance that wiring will work.
Okay, good.
There was a short time where we didn't use true Ethernet. Like that was probably about 13 years to 15 years ago, where it didn't use all. Regardless, it should work. It's probably a network cable. Right.
And I'd just like to kind of piggyback on that the SafeSpace is a product of the Videx sensor. So if you are
and the The vid for, but basically, if you have an existing SenSource sensor, and if that sensor has 2 video lenses on it, like 2 eyes looking down, that would be compatible
with SafeSpace.
With SafeSpace.
Yes, but just speaking of some of our older models, if it looks more like a smoke detector or a little bit different model, then that may not be a SafeSpace compatible device.
Or brake beam.
If there are any current SenSource customers out there that just aren't sure, just contact us.
Okay.
Yeah, be sure.
Are you developing a wireless version of the sensor? What if the place the sensor has to be installed is not near a network drop or switch? For example, in a 2-story building where the switches are upstairs at the opposite end of the building.
Yeah, we are working on a wireless version of the sensor that would allow to use your existing Wi-Fi network for the data transmission. You'd have to power that, but as of today, the only thing that we can do if it's a completely just terrible cable run, if it's whatever, just impossible concrete ceiling and you don't want to, you can't run external conduit, for example. We do have customers that use basically it's an Ethernet to Wi-Fi adapter, or we have these power line adapters that use if you can get it to an electrical outlet, it can use that infrastructure to send a signal back to the network port where you have another adapter to kind of translate the network communication. So we have some of those options to get around that. For now, it's not integrated into the device. It's basically taking the network out of the sensor and then taking that to a LAN to Wi-Fi converter.
Okay, great. Last question. Can any data be put into a heat map, or is there only certain data can be put in the heat map? I'm thinking about heat maps to show traffic in different areas of the building.
Okay. Yeah, so when I show like heat map, when we say day hour heat map, for example, this is not, you could have what we call our heat maps. You can have multiple locations stacked side by side. Like, for example, if I pull up let's just think of this as one library with 3 different areas that you're monitoring with our sensors. You could have those, let's just say this is children's area, a reading room. This is the main library itself, and this is a maker space. You can then, it's not a great example because these ones get so much viewed traffic, but it's a real life example that you could say, we can stack to say what the usage is at different times of day, and you can have multiple of these views. We don't offer what most people think of a heat map is. It's going to be maybe a floor plan that has the foot traffic views, and it overlays kind of the busier, patterns and where people are spending time. At this point, we don't have a floor plan heat map, but it's more of a way to look at multiple spaces, and it does heat map them to show you what space is being used more than others at certain times of day, but not a floor plan heat map yet.
Okay, I lied. I have one more question.
That's fine.
It's a good one. So if we purchase now and Greater Campus decides to purchase later, can these 2 systems be integrated easily?
Yes, they can. Yep.
Okay.
And you can set up users so that they only have access to their department on the campus, for example, or a certain location. But yeah, we have a lot of that on the higher ed space where the library comes to us, but then maybe the dining services, the cafeteria will come to us, and then maybe a student union, and it's an option. Sometimes the customer doesn't want to have a user or the ability to kind of under one umbrella, but we definitely have the ability to put it under one umbrella and separate it.
All right. Thank you so much, Jessica, Andy, Dan. That was fantastic. So much information. Thank you, audience, for participating.
Just 2 things real quick.
Sure.
If anybody would like an in-depth one-on-one demo with Dan or a member of our sales team that can show you the more insides scoop on VEA, just go to our website. It's SenSourceInc.com, and we run 2 demos per week. You can sign up for a demo time slot there, and we do run those. And then also go to our website, and we have a couple contact forms. We have a request pricing form. We have some brochures you can download, videos you can watch. All that information can be found on our website, and we hope you find what you're looking for. And if not, just fill out a form, and somebody will be in touch with you right away.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you, audience members, for coming and joining us today. Again, I'll send out a copy of the recording tomorrow, so take a look, keep an eye out for that. I can always be reached at Jenny, Jenny, at libraryworks.com if you need anything. And again, thank you for SenSource for coming out today. Stay healthy, everyone. Stay well, and we hope to see you at another LibraryWorks webinar very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, see you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny.
Sure.